we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. But he's been charged with a crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Welcome to Truth and Justice with Vivian King. We have another exciting show for you tonight where we will attempt to educate you about the criminal justice system in Harris County. One of the scariest crimes for a mother, for a person charged with a crime, and for citizens in general is aggravated robbery. So many young men are charged with aggravated robbery. We have a family in the studio tonight. The mother of the young man that was sentenced to 30 years in prison after a jury trial. We also have the mother's two sisters who are aunts to Christian Carey. He's the young man who went to trial to defend himself against what his family says are false allegations. Let me give you this caveat. I've never talked to Christian. His parents want to tell his story. His mother wants to tell his story in an effort for justice, in an effort to educate people so that we know what we're dealing with the Harris County criminal justice system. I've just talked about his story with him right before we went on stage. But one of the things that I think is an interesting theme for tonight is we thought we would win. We thought we would win. I mean, that's what the family is telling me. They just thought he didn't do it. So it's no way a jury in Harris County would have convicted him. He didn't do it. He told them where he was. He was with his family most of the day. He had money because he was working. He had just cashed his check. So he just didn't need to do what he was accused of doing for the small amount of money that was retained. And he just thought, and they thought that going to trial and putting that out there, that a jury would look at him and see that it didn't happen and believe his story. What a lot of us do is we believe that there's justice. And what we need to learn is that there's no justice until we all participate in the criminal justice system. There's no justice until we get our jury service card and we honor it. And we believe that it is our community service to go and participate and to find someone guilty if they are and find somebody not guilty if they're not. We cannot rely on other people to do that for us. We have to do it. And we need to, as minorities, we have a lot of people that tell us they didn't do it, that are falsely accused, but when we go to jury duty, we don't see those minorities showing up for court. There's a disconnect. It's our fault. So we've got to vehemently and willingly participate in the system. But I'm going to stop preaching, and I'm going to let Alicia Greer, the mother of Christian Carey, tell his story. So, Alicia, tell us why you thought this was a win. I mean, tell us what your son was charged with, and tell us what actually happened, please.
My son was charged with aggravated robbery. The actual robbery occurred approximately 5 miles from our home. He was actually just walking to a corner store very near our house within the same block, not a quarter of a mile. This is not where the crime occurred at all. And he was going to get a pack of cigarettes, something that he did pretty much on a every other night or nightly basis. He would go get cigarettes. The police stopped him and accused him, said that a robbery had occurred several blocks away, miles away. And he said that he didn't do it. They asked him for his ID. He gladly volunteered his ID to them and told them he did not do it. The one thing that I do know that he said that I kind of, he told him, you can take me by there, I didn't do it. That's basically what happened. The officer then let my son call. He had his cell phone. He allowed him to call, I think, his girlfriend or someone and, say the cops have me or that situation. and they took him by there. However, on the way going to the store, the officer called to the store and said, and this was at night after 9:30, so it's dark, and said, "I got him. We got him." That's what he called and told the people at the store. When they got to the store, my son was in the back seat of the car. They did not take my son out of the car. They drove to there. It's a very busy convenience store, so a lot of people are usually there at night. So they went and they parked like outside away from the store a little ways, called the young man out. He stood up on the sidewalk of the store, not coming even to the car front of the police car or to the door. And they said, "We got him." And he said, "Is this him?" And he said, "Yes." And that began the nightmare for me and for us.
About when was that? What day or time and year was that?
It's been 5 years almost now. It's been over 4 years.
So 2009.
And
About what time of night was this?
it was around 9:30 or 10. And actually, what had happened, I had just left the house, and and he had planned to go to shoot pool with a friend of his. The friend actually is a jailer right now, as far as I know, and he had been living in the same apartment complex we lived in, but he of course was on duty, so he was staying there. But it's a weekend night, so they were going to go shoot pool. So he had talked to his friend, and they were going to go. I left the home to go to the movie with a friend of mine, and I think this had not been a good 30 minutes when all of this stuff began to occur. Well, he called. He was in the, and he said he was being detained by the police officer.
So what did you think when he told you that he was being detained?
I thought I didn't think that they would actually arrest him. I didn't think that it would turn into all of this. I thought that we would have to probably bond him out. But I knew that when I left the home, he was there. I'm positive, he was there, and it hadn't been any time. And I said, "Well, I know you were going to shoot pool, So he told me that they were unjustly accusing him at that time.
So he gets arrested, and what happens after that? When he gets arrested, does he stay in jail for a while, or do you and the family immediately work on getting him bonded out?
He stayed a few days because we had to work on getting him bonded out. But he didn't stay the entire time. However,
2 days.
he stayed a couple of days. But being the mother that I am, we began trying to just get information. First thing was we wanted to get the video from the store because my son would not be on that video. Well, that video whole situation also turned into a nightmare because according to the county, it could not be, it actually could not be. We wanted to get it enhanced because it wasn't completely clear. But we can.
Was it a black and white video or color?
It is basically, it's black and white. But you can tell, it's not so distorted that you can't tell. The young men in the video were wearing some type of hoodies. We could kind of hear the voices. They had an accent. My son didn't have an accent at all because he's a Texas child forever. But the thing
What kind of accent? Like a East Coast accent, California accent, or another language accent?
Now, I thought more of a New Orleans accent, and I was talking to her.
I said, I think New Orleans or Los Angeles.
I'm not, you could definitely detect that it's not just
The average
accent.
person.
And he's only been in Texas, so you could detect that. However, what they said was that my son was the person who supposedly had the money bag. He was not the person who the robbery that was committed was aggravated, and someone had a gun, someone had a money bag. So that was the accusation against my son. Of course, when they picked up my son and they tried to claim that he was running from this crime scene, which was 5 miles away, by the way, that he didn't have any money bag. He didn't have, he had nothing. And the other person, whoever was involved, has never been located. There's nothing. He had, originally they said that $50 was stolen from the store.
Oh, from the store?
Yes. They changed that to say 200, but my son had way more money than that.
And
Way
he had
more,
just received
because-
his Christmas bonus,
Yes,
correct?
he was working
As
for
well as
a
his regular
AAA box
paycheck.
company, verifiable. We even brought the check stubs, it was provable. And it was close to Christmas, so he had gotten a Christmas bonus.
Along with his normal paycheck.
Yeah, so, and as a matter of fact, I had been teasing him that he had made more money than me on that one. But they accused, this is what they said. First it was $50. During the course of time, they changed it. He had way more money than that. Originally, they said it was a lot of change, a few bills and so a lot of change. Of course, he didn't even have, I don't think, any change. But anyway,
And no ones.
So they thought that he had put all this money in a money bag, but then yet had
Threw it
thrown the
away.
change away and put it in his pocket. Okay.
and added to the rest of his. And he's a working young man. He was going to school for medical assistant. He wasn't. I'm saying that to be, to clarify the fact that he wasn't a drug dealer. His money was legitimate and verifiable.
And that's unusual. That's good. That was good.
And those things were brought forward, verified.
Okay.
But at any rate,
So what was the evidence of guilt? The fact that the person at the store clerk said it was him.
No.
well, that's
You said
what
that.
they were
You
gonna
said
use
that. You
as
said that's
the-
what happened, though. You
Yeah,
said when they
that's-
brought him back to the scene, the store clerk
Person
looked
said
that
that it
and
was
said it
him.
was him, and that's the same guy that's.
But he
listed
never
in the-
actually approached the car. He was
Right, right. I understand the distance, but he still said yes.
Yeah,
that's him.
initially he said that was him.
Yeah.
Right, because and I want for the education and teaching moment, I want you to know that Harris County DA's office only accepts charges if there's an identification. So someone has to say you did it. So if someone says, oh, charges are filed on me, what criminal lawyers know is someone identified you as the robber.
This guy did. He at that point he did say it was him. But again, as she said, it was such a distance because I know the actual store. The door of the store may be here, where they had the car was out under the light. They said in trial that it was under the
right.
street light. The street light from this store is at least 150 feet. It's quite a distance for somebody to just say that's him. They didn't take him out of the car.
Right.
They didn't remove
Well,
him.
but they had been prompted because the policeman had already called him and said, we
We got him.
And did that come out in the trial?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
So the jury knew that the officer called and said, we got him, we're bringing him in. The jury knew that the identification was made far away. He wasn't looking at him close, so they knew that, and yet they still found him guilty. And as you told me, we're going to fast forward a little bit. In the trial, the person who had made that identification says, I'm not sure if it's him or not.
What happened? He
Is that yes or no?
yes.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And you can tell me what happened. I just want to make sure that's clear.
He actually they did a where you go on a break, and my nephew went to the bathroom as well as the person that said he did
And that's
this crime.
called the complaining witness, or the DAs will call him the victim. But the official term is the complainant, the person that complained that a crime had been occurred, and your nephew was the defendant or the accused.
Okay.
So they both went. There was a break, and they both went to the restroom.
Right, and my nephew came out, ran to me, and said, "Auntie, he just told me in the bathroom that he can't even say it was me. He just told me that." And I told him, we need to go tell your attorney this right now. We did that. When they went back into trial, when he started questioning the complainant said in court he could not say it was him.
Wow.
He could not
Wow.
say it was him.
But was there a time when the store owner, you said it was a Vietnamese guy or an Asian guy?
He was a
wasn't the
clerk
store owner.
as well.
But he was there. So did he? But he identified your nephew.
No, he did not. He
What did the
never
Asian guy
ident-
say?
The Asian guy couldn't even. Both of them had two conflicting stories. The Asian guy said the person was in white. The other complainant said they were in all black. The Asian guy said he didn't really see anything because at first he was at the back of the store. No, when they came, he was outside emptying the cooler, so he didn't really see, who it was, because he was outside. And then when he came in, he got behind some other cooler inside the store and basically hid. So he never gave a description, never anything. Everything that he said was pretty much, he don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so
I
he
don't-
wasn't significant, even though you wrote about him and his English, it really doesn't matter because he didn't make an identification.
And he
Is that true?
No, he didn't make an
Okay, so he
identification.
wasn't really an issue then. I mean, how was he an issue?
Well, for one thing, the reason I felt that he was an issue is because they put what happened when their first witness couldn't identify him. I think that sent him into a little turmoil. So they tried to use him, and he literally began to say,
He doesn't remember. Then he didn't know. He
he
don't.
literally began to say that he doesn't speak English. He doesn't know. He doesn't speak English. He does, and
He couldn't say
didn't
that he had
answer any
said even
questions.
back then he couldn't identify him? He didn't even say that? He didn't remember that? So why did they call him if he didn't remember? He shouldn't have been a witness if he didn't remember.
Well, initially, I think when they put him on the stand, because what happened, when they initially put him on the stand, they start asking him different questions, and I don't think he was answering the questions the way, maybe they hadn't prompted him or talked to him beforehand. And then they did a break, and after the break, when he came back, then he didn't know anything about anything.
That's interesting. But because you watched the trial, if you can be objective and act like this wasn't your nephew, what did he say that was damaging to your nephew's case?
Really, after I don't remember anything that I would have felt was damaging. I wouldn't have believed anything because I would have felt that if you know nothing, then
What
can
about
you
you,
really
Sybil?
tell?
Did you get to see that testimony?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you didn't see either one, the complainant or his coworker at the store?
No.
Okay, so you didn't get to see those things. All right, and Mom, you're nervous outside the courtroom while this is going on. So tell me some of the things that you were surprised about and frustrated about as a citizen of something that went on in the courtroom.
Oh my God. There are several things that there was a phone record. The reason we said that we were thought it was basically a cut and dried thing, there was a phone record. There's records, and there should reports that my son had his cell phone on him. The phone record literally shows that 2 seconds prior to this crime, he's on the phone talking to his girlfriend. Those records were subpoenaed records, phone records that showed all his conversations. That alone is very, very crucial to me. The fact, and I do know the attorney had me but the records are very clear cut, and he had me to read those records to the jury, and they were entered as evidence for the jury. So that's one thing that I thought was very very bad.
Let's deal with that. Okay, so they're phone records. So are you telling me that if you were on a jury and you heard the person was on the phone 2 seconds before the crime, you would automatically vote not guilty? Is that what you're saying?
They did.
I'm asking you, if you were on a jury, I'm not even asking you, the mom, even though y'all the answer. Do you think
Yes.
that you would vote not guilty automatically just because the phones say that, the records say that?
2 seconds. I think that's pretty.
Unless they are showing on the video with the phone. Talk.
I mean, you can't be crying. You can't
down in 2
yeah, you
seconds.
can't threaten somebody
With
and
the money
steal
bag
money
on
and
the
have
phone.
money bags and all that.
I think I would have.
Unless the time is wrong. Now, the time could be wrong of the crime, not the phone records, because they're going to be right. But most of the time when people get robbed, they're not looking at the time at that moment, right? So they're not going to know exactly what time they got robbed. Now, there's going to be a record of exactly what time they called 911.
And based on that evidence of the time that they gave, that they were robbed, 2 seconds prior to that, if the person was on the phone, I would find that a reason to say,
Have a reasonable doubt.
that reasonable doubt.
So your lawyer, you did a good job with that part. Now, after the trial, I'm going to kind of skip around just for the teaching moment. After the trial, the lawyers get to go back and talk to the jurors. So when your lawyer went and talked to the juror, what did he say that the jurors said about the phone?
He never came back and told us anything.
We have no
Do
information.
you know if he
about
went back there to the jury room with them?
We were told that when the trial was over, that's where he was going. He actually told my nephew to sit there where he was sitting all through the trial, and he was going to talk to the jurors. That's what he told us. But when he came out, he never shared with us what the jury said. He never He actually, he told us something about an appeal, but
Yeah, but that's not what the jury said.
never.
But subsequently to that date, when he was telling me more that we could appeal, and even if we had to say that it was his fault, he did say that the jury said that basically that for me to read the records, I'm not a phone tech expert, and so they couldn't really go with that, because I'm not a phone expert, even though they did actually have those subpoenaed records. And there is a lot to be said about that because we tried to, I was pushing to get the records. I was pushing to get a copy of the videotape. My son literally paid his own money. He still worked to try and get the videotape enhanced.
Did y'all get it enhanced?
It could not be, the copy that we had could not be enhanced, and the county said that their copy theirs wasn't in.
So
couldn't
nobody
be
could
enhanced
enhance
clear.
it?
It's never
That's
no,
what they
it's never been cleared. No, ma'am.
So that's one of the things in a writ that you might want to do is get it enhanced. I mean, if you wanted, I was talking to Alicia off camera, and if you want to do a writ, remember it has to be newly discovered evidence. So if you can get someone, an investigator or a forensic expert in computer enhancement, I mean, that would be one way you do it, is to get with get it enhanced. Because remember, you got to solve the crime. And I was telling them one of the most frustrating things as a criminal defense lawyer is jurors the people who come to jury duty who are good enough citizens to sacrifice their time to give up to be for 5 days without pay are the type of people that believe they're coming to do community service for their community. And they believe in the system, but they believe in the prosecutors. And we know prosecutors can be bad prosecutors or good prosecutors, but they believe in a system. So they come in there almost thinking that everybody's guilty because the prosecutors wouldn't spend all this money and have 2 or 3 prosecutors sitting there with an investigator and use the county resources if this person wasn't guilty. So the difficult part in defending someone with aggravated robbery is you almost have to find out who did it. And one of the ways you would have had to do that would have definitely been to enhance that video, so that we can figure out exactly whose face is on there.
We even talked to somebody about trying to get it enhanced through NASA. They sent it off out of
FBI
town.
knows how to do it.
That's what I would think. I don't know how to get. Trust me, I
So
want that
the
connection.
NASA connection didn't help.
We didn't have a NASA connection. Somebody said that the things that NASA has, probably the equipment they have, could probably do that, but we don't have a NASA connection, and or to my knowledge,
It was asked about NASA doing it, and it was said that it couldn't be done.
Well, that might be possible, but it just
But I
doesn't
know
seem
somebody
probable.
can do it.
It might be possible. It doesn't seem probable.
However, the tape was black and white, but this is something I don't recall her mentioning. The person with the bag was a fair-complected person. My nephew is dark. He's a dark
We saw the
complexion.
pictures.
Yeah, and you can tell very well. You could tell it's the darker person is the person that has a gun. The person with the bag is a fair-complected person.
So that's interesting. So I would be curious to know what the jury thought about that.
That was why I wasn't
they
in the
didn't
trial.
show
We had seen the picture. I was saying, oh, no way. This
See, another thing that we have to do as criminal defense lawyers is, because the jury is going to be mostly white, whites are not paying attention to all those different skin tones. If you're black, you're black. That's a black thing.
Okay.
Black people are talking about red bone, light skin. White people, now younger white people that are better friends with black people might know that we make those distinctions, and a lot of prosecutors understand it because they hear that language all the time coming from complainants from the hood, because a lot of the shootings and robberies among gang-related people are black-on-black crime, so they hear descriptions of T-black. So they know that we make those distinctions. You understand what I'm saying? But other races don't make a lot of distinctions. If a white person calls someone else white dark, they're more talking about they have dark hair. You know, so with dark hair usually is a person with more olive complexion but still white. But they're, you know, it's more of a hair description and some skin goes with that. Or if they're redhead, you know, they might have freckles. You know, it kind of goes with the hair color. But they don't see us like we see us. You know, we make all those fine distinctions of who's lighter, who's darker. You know, you black to them. You see what I'm saying? And so
this was very vividly
I was going
different.
to say-
I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. You have to talk to white people that are older, 60 years old. If they're making those kind of distinctions when they look at us, they don't. I'm just telling you. I've talked to them about that. They're not looking at us like that.
But based on the
So
tape
someone, what
and
I'm
the
telling you is
pictures-
that, so someone would have had to testify to that.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to have someone testify. If that's an issue with me, then I'd have to have a person. It doesn't have to be an expert necessarily. Just testify and talk about how we make distinctions in our skin complexions. And you got to talk about that on voir dire, which is jury selection. If you're on a jury, would that matter to you? Or would you just look at it and say, well, he's black, he ain't white, and so he's black? Or would you get into the skin, the hair, the eyes? That's something we do, but they just see if he's not black, I mean, he's not white, he's black, and so, you know, they're not looking at all those details. And I've even read studies and had a cross-racial expert testify in a trial that has been studying cross-racial for 34 years, and he said white people, and he was white, and he said they just don't look at it like that. They look at the general description, but they're not looking at, you know, noses and eyes. They're not looking at specifically. And skin complexion, they just look at general. So you have to have someone at least explain that and see if you got to have jurors that can make those distinctions, because that's an important distinction in your trial. And if that didn't come up in the trial, which I'm sure it didn't,
Did not.
then how can that be a factor for you and you, but it never even came out in the trial, and that's a factor for you. You see what I'm saying? So somehow your lawyer has to bring that factor to life, and it has to be a part of the evidence that the jury is considering, and they have to be jurors that can consider it. So you got to talk about it in jury selection when you have 65 people there and you're narrowing it down to 12. Because what we actually do is we cross out people who can't be fair. So if you talk about a hypothetical with color distinctions, and does that matter to you to guilt or innocence, or would you just pick someone because they're black and not pay attention to whether they're light skinned or dark skinned, and they don't seem to understand what you're even talking about? Then you know that's a juror that you got to strike. They're not going to be on your jury because they can't even deal with that issue. They've never thought about that because white people are not thinking about black people's issues. That's our issue. That ain't their issue. They don't care. I mean, they know you're not white. That's all they know. They don't know. So I'm just saying, but that's a fine issue that you have to deal with. And I didn't hear that came up in the trial, but I noticed that when you wrote out what happened, that was an issue. So how can that not? So you're assuming that people are making that distinction because when they're looking at it, but that's an assumption that you're making, right? All right. So so we deal with that. Okay. What's another issue?
There were several issues.
Well, you said the judge went to sleep.
The judge did go to sleep.
Okay,
I
and
definitely-
this is Judge Guerrero in the 174th District Court. We've had our battles. I respect him. We're both from San Antonio. He's a good man, a good person. But just everybody, just because you're good, we still have a right as citizens to get our money's worth. And so I think that your research revealed that he had some health issues that maybe caused him to go to sleep. How do you think that would have given your son an unfair trial?
Well, I didn't realize that he actually said he had sleep apnea. But when I went to an appellate attorney that had interned for him, he told me that he does have sleep apnea. He's had it for several years. And how can you sentence someone? Were you asleep during part of this? And he actually did admit it. He fell asleep.
He said it.
And so he had to, address it. And he addressed that he did fall asleep and he had sleep apnea. And for the duration of the case, basically, he wore dark shades.
Wow. And why do you
on
think
a daily basis.
Why do you think he was wearing
so
dark
that if
shades?
I do fall asleep,
No
they
one
won't
will.
see me.
Wow.
I mean, why would you? No one else. It wasn't direct sunlight. I mean,
Wow.
no one else did.
And how do you feel about him wearing shades and not being able to sleep? How does that make you feel?
I don't even think he should be up there. I don't. I can't go to my job and go to sleep. During the day.
But let me tell you what's interesting. Who's the boss of judges? The citizens who vote.
People.
And
Yeah.
so that's why we need to take voting very
That's right.
seriously because you need to know. And who tells you? I mean, how would anybody know? Is there any platform to know? Is there any? How would you know what judges are doing what?
You would know.
What group does that and puts that information out? Why don't they do that?
Exactly.
We have a phone call. Do you mind if I take a call?
Sure.
Caller, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Please make a comment.
Yes, good evening, Vivian and ladies, sisters. I have the comment is as far as white people identifying or act like we all the same skin tone. They if they can get eyes and they can see, they know the difference. I think that's the scapegoat. They know exactly if it's a dark skinned guy sitting there in front of them and the light skinned guy is on the tape. There's no way that they can look at this light skinned guy and say, well, that's him and he's dark. They know exactly, but they try to put that vague pictures like, oh, they all the same. They're all blacks are all the same. That's ludicrous, and it don't make any sense whatsoever.
And I
don't
appreciate.
know
No, hold on. Let me just say this. I appreciate your comment, but what can I do fighting for justice down there to make people care about what you're saying that they don't care about? I agree with you, but how do we make them care so that we can get justice? What do you think the solution is?
I mean, I think you pointed out that the lawyers should have made a distinct difference between that person that you see on the screen and the person that's sitting right here. You can visually see that it's two different shades of people. And if the lawyer did not do that, then I don't know. That's just. I'm not a lawyer. That's just.
But caller, you're getting pretty good though, because you call me every week and you're getting good though. I need to have you in there helping me.
Hey, one more thing also about the guys, your buddy down from San Antonio.
He ain't my
He's
buddy
a big
now.
man.
Come on. Judge Guerrero not my buddy, but I do respect him. I got to go before him. But and when I think he's wrong, I call him out on it. But I do respect him, and I do believe in this society we can agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. And so
All right, last
okay, I'm
thing,
sorry.
and we'll hang up.
Yes, sir.
Now, far as with voting, and you ran for. I'll be honest, I haven't voted since '84. I haven't voted since Jesse Jackson. I was in Chicago, Jesse Jackson and Harold Washington. That's a long time.
Yeah, but I remember those were some good days, though. That was the 80s when everybody had money. So I remember those days. I was here, but I remember that very well. And I'm proud of people in Chicago because y'all really went out and voted then too.
Oh, that was a historic.
It was historic. It was like Obama. It was a beautiful thing. I watched it. It was a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. But this is the thing. This is what this Indian guy told me in Atlanta. He told me it's not really who vote. It's who counts them votes. And I was like, I just sit there and like, wow, because he was telling me, I'm not sure, it was a Congress lady in Decatur or in Atlanta, Georgia, surrounding areas. Cynthia, I forgot her name, but she was real, real. I don't say she was a rebel, whatever, this and that. But like he said, though, ever since then, that's why I probably didn't vote it. Sometimes it's not who vote, it's who count the votes. Thank you for letting me call.
Okay, thank you for watching. I appreciate your support.
All right.
Let's take another call. Caller, you're on. Thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King.
Hi, Vivian. This is Diane James. How are you?
Hey, Diane. How are you?
I'm good. Listen, I was just listening to the program.
Now, that's my homegirl, Diane?
That's your homegirl,
Oh, okay.
Diane.
Girl, I haven't seen you in 30 years. Where you been?
No, not 30. I was at one of your real nice birthday bashes. I don't think it was quite 30 years ago.
Okay, it's when I turned 50. Okay, 6 years ago.
Okay, listen. Back to the jury selection. I shared with you on one of your programs before that I had the opportunity to be on grand jury.
Yeah.
That jury selection and the impact and the diversity of personalities in that juror room plays a big impact. It's just like you were telling them. The jury should be able to differentiate things among themselves, but if you have really aggressive personalities in there to passive ones, they definitely overruled things. And the jury selection, I mean, I know they reach out to the community and they want everyone to participate, but the jury selection is extremely crucial. I was scratched from the jury selection of 65 because of a comment I made in regards to the case that they were trying me for. But the next day, Judge Barr, who I respect,
Is that man bar or a woman bar? Because
Jean, it's the woman bar.
okay, because they were husband and wife at one point, but he lost his seat due to some conduct issues. But we used to call him he bar and she bar.
Okay, well, she barred that next day because of a question I presented, but I was scratched from the 65 who invited me at a very young age to sit on grand jury, and I was sergeant of arms. And as I told you,
Wow.
I had to get the bailiff many a times because there are bullies in that jury room.
Right.
So, it's just a sad situation, but I often think about what Farrakhan shared. If you have yellowbirds and you have blackbirds and the food is scarce, those yellowbirds are going to look out for each other.
Wow.
That's my comment.
Well, thank you, Diane, for calling. And will you reach out for me?
Yes, I will. I
And
promise I
give me
will
your email or
you.
something. Can we hook up? I mean, even though you came to a fundraiser, I still hadn't seen you for 30 years before then.
Oh, look, we got to hook up, okay?
All right, thank you.
Good job. Take care.
All right, sweetie,
Bye.
thank you. So, yeah, all right. So those are very, very good comments. Okay, because that's the problem. We've neglected to participate, and we expect justice. And until we participate, there will just be just us, as Richard Pryor said. It will be just us as the defendants. But we've got to be on grand juries. A grand jury sits for 3 months to hear probable cause of all felonies. So Diane James is saying that she came to a jury like Chris, your son's trial. She was struck because of something she said. So the people who talk are the ones who get struck because when they talk, obviously she has an opinion, and she probably got struck by the DAs because she probably had an opinion of fairness. They don't want that. They want somebody that's going to already be biased for them.
Yeah.
And then the defense has to strike the ones that sound like they're biased for the state. See, and what people think is that you pick juries. You don't pick them. You deselect them. You strike the people who can't be fair. Everybody gives their list that they've stricken to the clerk, and the clerk has a master list, and so I get 10. The state gets 10, and so when they see which 20 is stricken, then the first 12 are the jurors. So you don't know who's going to be on the jury. It's a very blind process. So all you have time to do is look and see, make sure none of your 10 you struck are up there. So that's what you're looking for. So when you see the lawyers looking down, they're trying to say, okay, let's make sure I struck this one, this one, this one, this one out of 65, and make sure they're not on there. Now, there's more to it than that. I'm just simplifying, okay? Because a judge we get rid of the people who can't be fair to both sides too, but we get to strike whoever we want to for whatever reason, 10 each, and so the first 12 are on there. So that makes it even harder, and that's what people have to understand. So I can't pick. So when people go and say they should have picked a better jury, you don't pick them.
Okay.
So you don't know who the heck you're gonna have on there. And the people who are quiet are the ones that end up on the jury because you don't know what their opinions are, and those might be the Nazis.
Passive.
Well, or they might be the ones with a hidden agenda, and they just don't say anything. They might be the most hateful people there, and they're so crazy and hateful that they're scared to raise their hand and show how crazy they are to the other 65 people. So then those are the ones you stuck with. And what she's saying is, and what Diane said is so true. One of the scariest trials I had, it was a long time ago, I can't even remember when, with a very seasoned New York prosecutor. He's from New York, he's local. He was older than me, and I knew this little boy hadn't done this aggravated robbery. He'd done a lot in his life. He was a little gangster, but he hadn't done this. Okay, I'd investigated it, but I just did not know how I was going to bring that story to life. It was court appointed. It was when I used to do 100% court appointments. It was at least 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And the thing that was significant for me in terms of juries is after they found him guilty, it took them a long time to find him guilty, and the lady did say he did it, okay? I just thought I had beat her up a lot, but she said he did it. And she was Asian, he's black. And he was with the girl and guy a girl and guy did the robbery. The guy disappears somewhere, and the girl picks up another guy, my client. So by the time they find the vehicle that fits the description, and it is the right vehicle, it's the wrong guy in the car, okay? So But as the police do, they say, "Oh, we found that car that you reported, the APB." So of course she's just going to identify who's in the car. And there were and we did find who did it, but we couldn't bring that to life because it was another gangster. He wasn't coming. So we did figure out who did it because the girl told us who did it. I even got the girl out of prison. She was in prison for that or something else, and she came and testified. It's not him. So it was. I thought it was 12 people on a jury. One was a very light-skinned black lady. The DA hadn't stricken her because he didn't know she was black. I did, okay? Very, very light-skinned lady. They came, when they found him guilty and the jury comes out, the defense lawyer has an opportunity to poll the jury. The term is poll, you want to poll the jury. And that means every juror, you're asked, is that your verdict? Is that your verdict? Is that your verdict? That's the only time we can find out, has someone lied or been bullied or something happened. Everybody said yes with this one lady. That's when I paid attention to her. I didn't realize she was black. I really hadn't paid attention to her. And I was like, wow, she said he's not guilty. So the judge, instead of declaring a mistrial like I think she should have done, she told him to go back and deliberate. Eventually, they find him guilty. Now, like I said, this is 12, 15 years ago. Late that night, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I've given it my all. The boy that went to jail. The judge knew he was not guilty, even though he was on probation for a felony out of her court. He was a little bad boy. So she told the DA, let's just make an agreement. Vivian, you have your client sign that he won't appeal if I can get the state to agree to 10 years. She wasn't supposed to do that, but she knew that it was a travesty of justice. He was 15 to life, so we just gave him some time. She was going to give him 10 years on the other case anyway. He was 2 to 10 for violating his probation, okay? Because he had been in violation with other things on his probation. So she just, but you get life for aggravated robbery, and he would have normally gotten 30 or 40 years. So she said, let's just compromise. I'm gonna give him 10 years anyway on this probation violation. Give him 10, no appeal, right? So to try to make both of us happy because she knew something had gone wrong. That juror, but I'm tired and I'm still defeated because I've worked my ass off, and a young man is going to jail for a crime he didn't commit. So I'm depressed like hell. I'm trying to justify it in my mind. Well, he did violate his probation. He hadn't been reported. He had weed in his system. He can do 2 to 10 on the other case, but it's not an aggravated robbery. I'm laying up asleep, mad, probably half drunk, and the woman calls me at 12 o'clock at night, the juror. I don't know how she finds my number, but that's back in the day before people used a lot of internet, and I am listed. So she remembered my name, because jurors don't take notes. So she remembered my name. She called me and she said, Miss King, I am so sorry to call you this late. And she was older than me. She said, but if I could have jumped out of that window today, I would have. She said, they almost beat me up and made me change my vote. She said it got so violent in there. She said she cried, she did everything. And so now when I go to trial on voir dire, when there's a jury selection, I empower the jury, because that's the only time we can talk to them before those 12 are selected. I tell them that the foreperson is the person who has to write the notes, but anybody can write a note if they're feeling bullied. So I kind of give them their rights. I mean, you can, if somebody's doing something to you, you can walk out the damn room. You ain't got to stay. You ain't under arrest. And you can communicate with the judge. You can say, look, the foreman didn't write down that I said not guilty, and I'm leaving, and I'm never changing my verdict. So I empower people to know this is not like work where you got a supervisor that tells everybody what to do. The foreperson's he's not the boss of you. I give him examples. If he becomes a foreman and I pick a strong person, he ain't the boss of you, okay? That's why this system is here for 12 people to decide individual verdicts, what it is. And if you are the last holdout, that is your prerogative. And you let that be known to the court, and you leave. Can't nobody make you stay. Don't just let somebody bully you. So what Diane said is real, and a good seasoned defense lawyer we learn to be good from our mistakes. And see, that's why it's important that when you're looking for a good lawyer, that you ask them how many trials they've had. I brag about being board certified, not so much that I am, because any lawyer is smart enough to take the test. You have to have a lot of trials to sit for this test.
Track record.
Right. So most of the people that you pick couldn't take it because they haven't had the experience that I've had. So not many people fall into the criteria. But anyway, it looks like we have a phone call. And caller, if you've held on, please state your comment.
Yes, this is O'Hara. Listen, I understand that each time the judge nodded off and woke up, if there was an objection, it seemed like he granted the objections of the prosecuting attorney and denied those of the defense attorney. I don't know if it would be possible to go back in the transcript and check this out. but it seems to me that that is an area that needs to be looked at.
You know, that's interesting that you said that, sir, and you're very observant because that is what most judges do. The trial that I had before Judge Guerrero, I think in 2009, that made the Houston Press, if you Google it, which is what the family did, I think, and that's why they realized they could reach out to me. It was such a travesty because he was doing crazy stuff like that, complimenting the girl prosecutors and not me. He was making a big deal out of everything. He granted all of the state's objections, none of mine. Outside the presence of the jury, I tried to throw a chair at him. Let you know that, because I clown when I'm in court. Okay, I fight like hell, and if you gonna just punk me, I'm gonna punk you back. So you just gonna have to take me to jail. Okay, I act crazy. So I mean, I couldn't pick up one of them big old chairs, but you know, it was the symbolism of trying. You know, you cheating. You know, so I clown him, and so it was such a heated trial that we had that it ended up. We have a Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association that's 500 strong, and I had sent out an email. The judge is complimenting these beautiful blonde prosecutors, and he ain't saying nothing to me. And most men, white or black, gonna say we all cute, okay? Even though I'm old, I ain't young like them, but at least try to give me a compliment. And so I reached out on the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. I said, I need me some blondes on my side. So two of the most beautiful blonde prosecutors, defense lawyers, but seasoned. They were older than me, but beautiful, you know, like movie stars, came and sat on my side. And in the trial, this is what Guerrero says. He goes and tells another judge in the back, Vivian must not know what she's doing. She got so-and-so, you know, Wendy Akins, Lana Gordon, they're over there sitting on her side. And the other judge said, they're not here to help her. They're here to watch you. And that's what the other judge who I knew told me that she said, because that's how he's underestimating me. He's my homeboy, but he's just assuming because I'm a black female, I don't know what I'm doing. You see what I'm saying? He's thinking that because he was new back on the bench. When he was a judge before, I was a prosecutor. So he had never known me as a defense lawyer, you know, because he had lost in 94. And this is 2009. So, and this is the first trial I'd had before him. And he just took office January of 2009. And I think this trial was like in May of 2009. So he didn't know me he knew me, but he didn't know my skills. And he didn't know that if I go to trial, I'm not playing. I think my client is innocent. And we can grin and talk all we want to, but this is war today. We can be friends next week. And I'm friends with him now. Like I said, I like him, but I'm gonna tell him what I think. Because he's a good person. He's just doing his job the way he thinks it should be done. But you made a very good observation. He did it to me. And but you know, y'all's lawyer Larry Douglas is a lot more sophisticated with his big booming voice than I am. But I'd have told the judge all but cussed him out. The last trial I had, I was cussing. They were like, Ms. King, why are you doing this? How do you get away with this? I'm like, they're making me crazy. I can't take it. I can't take it. I mean, they cheating. I mean, just think when you're in the courtroom fighting for someone's life. I have a mother like Elisa saying, this is my son's life. He's saying, this is my life, Ms. King. Like, I put him in jail, and everybody in the courtroom is against you. The prosecutors, the investigators, the clerks that work in the court, the judge. I mean, it's David against Goliath. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. So sometimes, at my age, I just lose it. I'm just telling you. When I was young, I tried to deal with it. I don't even try to deal with it anymore. But anyway, thank you for your call, sir. And your observation is right. And the objections will show in the record that the judge was partial in the objections, but there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing illegal about that. And the problem with appeals, and this is where my frustration comes when parents call me about what their kids, the sentences they got, is that only 0.5% of all cases are overturned on appeal. So that means none. I mean, and so what do you have to do to get your case? But you can win a trial. You know, people win trials, but it's very hard once you get convicted because they're the same people. Everybody on the Court of Appeals are the same people that used to be in the DA's office and were friends with all the judges. Half of them are married to each other. So it's just like, Alicia's sister grading the paper of Marcia. I'm sorry, am I saying that right? Marcia, and grading the paper of Sybil. They're the same people. What you gonna do? Who you gonna vote for? Somebody you don't know or somebody you know? That's the problem. So it's personal. They're all the same people. They all live in the same neighborhood. They all came from the same Harris County DA's office. They're all the same people. If not, they're all in the same clubs, if they're civil. So there is no diversity in, and people have a hard time grading their friends' papers and telling them they did wrong. And that's the problem. It's all politics. It doesn't matter what you say. So I used to do a lot of appeals, and I had to stop doing them because it's like making doing a A paper and always making an F. And whatever the DA say in their brief, that becomes the opinion of the court. They just co-sign on everything they do. It's the same people. Another reason why I want to talk and ask you to please care and please go to do your part to go to jury duty. It might not help your son, but it might help somebody else's son. Or if they did it, you might make the punishment fit the crime. You know, every kid that does a crime doesn't deserve 50 years. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you might say he did it, but once he gets up there and cries and begs and shows he's been working and trying to do better, you might be the advocate to say, give him 15 years. You know, give him some time to teach him a lesson, but it's the time he can do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Sybil?
Very much so.
And that's why we have to do our part. And if we don't do our part, we're going to suffer. So, what else do we think was interesting in the trial? I'm going to go back. I know we have 10 minutes, and I'm going to let each of you close up with what you learned from this trial, but I want to find out. Now, somebody on the store video was not wearing Tookie Williams' shirt. Talk about the shirt.
The prosecutor got up and said that basically she made up a whole story, that he's a gang affiliated, and she literally said, and he's probably trying to help his poor mother. I've worked forever. She made up an entire story because he had on a Tookie Williams shirt.
And who is Tookie Williams?
Tookie Williams, to my knowledge, was at one time a gang leader in California who turned his life around, to my knowledge.
Completely around.
Wow.
And actually stopped
Others.
gangs from being gangs.
Like feuding and fighting with each other. Wow.
I did have another thing that I think that is very unfair is that they are allowed to parade, a policeman in there who literally said that they asked him why he didn't take him out the car. And he said he had to go out and get some more criminals. But really, I think that he didn't take him out of the car because my son had said it wasn't him. He had already called and framed him by saying, we got him.
I got him.
And he didn't know probably if I take him out, what if it's not him? As showing when the young man got up there and said, I can't say it's him. And I honestly believe that's why he did that.
Well, I think one thing that's significant too is if the people are on the video and and you don't see that Tookie Williams T-shirt.
That's
but
right.
Yet when they catch him, he has a
That's
Tookie
right.
Williams T-shirt. Why would he be walking if they, why would he? Was the
Just ran
person
and
walking?
changed
Was he
clothes.
in a car? I mean, it happened right
Well,
after
they
that.
said that he ran 5 miles in 2 minutes.
Okay.
He ran 5 miles in,
In
2 minutes.
But he's not huffing and puffing. He's not sweating.
Nothing. The policeman said he wasn't sweating. He was just walking, but he fit the description. What was the description?
So what was the description? And let me tell you what's interesting in these cases. What I've learned, jurors don't care about the description. And I have a hard time with parents that hire me because they be like, well, it's an easy case. We should win and we don't fit the grid. Jurors don't care about the description. How do we make them care? I don't know, but they don't care about the description. They can say the person was 6'5" and they can bring in somebody 5'10". Do you know them jurors will still convict you?
Well,
You got to do something bigger than that.
The prosecutor my son, who he was going to shoot pool with, is a jailer, and when
And
he
was
came to
then.
sign, that the witnesses have to come, he had on his uniform. Well, they told him that he cannot wear his uniform
Oh, yeah.
because that's too suggestive.
Yeah, let
That
me
would
tell-
make my
right.
son have a friend that's a good
A
person.
cop, right, right. That is what's so cold. When the DA's office does do that. They tell, if you have a witness that's a cop, say like if his alibi was his friend that's a cop, okay, or a jailer. And the Constitution of the United States says you have a right to compel, which means to subpoena and make your witnesses come to court to defend yourself, okay? But the HPD or any jail policy around his sheriff's department, their internal policy is that if you're going to testify for the defense, you have to write a memo to them to let them know that. Now, why would that matter? You don't have to do that in any other job, and you're supposed to be law enforcement. You're supposed to be doing what's fair and what's right, but you've got to write a memo, and that's going to go in your personnel file and be used against you because you were subpoenaed to come as a citizen in this city and in the United States to come to court. And I one time had a trial where I was representing a guy who had been an Alvin police officer, got fired for this incident, but all of his friends were Alvin police officers. So when I subpoenaed them to come and testify, a lot of them were on duty. You know, you have to wait around when it's, you know, you never know exactly when you're going to testify. So they had their uniforms on. And the prosecutor the next day called their police chief out there and said, tell them to take their uniforms off. Their police chief was not going to be complicit in this agreement that Harris County does. He wasn't going for it. He wrote Johnny Holmes, who was the DA at the time, and said, how dare one of your prosecutors call my office and tell my people who are on duty, who've been subpoenaed, not to wear their uniforms. And she got reprimanded for it. But HPD, the Sheriff's Department, if they're around here in Harris County, all of these agencies cooperate with that policy, and it's totally unfair. But that's another thing that you can deal with. When your mayor is running, when your city council people, they're in charge of HPD. You can ask those questions when they come out to those civic meetings. If you're subpoenaed by the defense, why do they have to take their uniforms off? You need to ask that. Or are you going to stop making them arrest young men for things that they didn't do? Ask those questions. The mayor is the one in charge of who's the police chief and who the police people are. And we saw what she did with that video. She didn't care. That boy got beat up. And I like Anise Parker, but I don't like the fact that she didn't care. How do you make another race care about your issues? I don't know. I think that's what integration was all about, right? I don't know how you, I mean, it's there. We have the right, but how do you make people care about it and enforce it? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Legally.
Because you can't legislate people's feelings, you know.
Can't change the hearts of people.
You can't change the hearts of people, but somehow, you know, in becoming a good defense lawyer, I have to try to find common ground, something that people do care about. And another thing, before we close, we have 2 minutes. Your son did not testify in his own defense, right?
No, he wanted to. He wanted to. He did not testify in his defense at the instruction of his attorney. Which.
And how do you feel about that?
I feel that, and I do believe even the attorney basically admitted that he had made a lot of errors with this case. I feel that he should have, okay, he's got 30 years, so at least he would have been able to
tell his story. And that's I'm gonna wrap it up by saying that in my experience, if my client convinces me they didn't do it, I don't care if their rap sheet is this long. I'm going to put them on the stand and tell their story. Because who can convince a jury that they didn't do it but the person that didn't do it? You know? Now, sometimes they're too dumb to testify because saying I'm not guilty is enough. Because some people, we know these kind of people. When you talk to them, you don't understand what they're saying. They don't answer questions directly. They talk all around things that don't matter. It makes it seem like they're lying even when they're not. There are times when that's a problem. But even with those people, I try to coach them into telling their story. Because people want to hear it. They want to weigh two sides. Because just think of a trial, they only hear one side. Everybody in the state is parading, and then you haven't heard anything on the other side, but somebody's mother is getting on the stand saying, I saw him right before, and jurors are saying, well, hell, I'd lie for my child too. But we have 30 seconds to wrap up. So, Alicia, please tell us what the moral to the story is for you.
The moral to the story is justice is not fair, and it is justice. I really feel that way. I feel that we really need to be more educated, and I would like it if anyone, we're looking for investigators. There is so much to this story. And Harris County justice system is it is not real. I'm sorry. It is
and I can understand
totally
your feeling.
unreal.
Your son doing 30 years for a crime that you know
they
seated
he didn't the jury do 3 times. There are so many things that they did.
But how do we get the
African
community
American
to care?
on the
So let's continue to fight the good fight, open dialogue. Hope everybody's included in the conversation. Please, I hope no one's offended by the things that I say. I feel the pain of this family. We talked for 30 minutes before we started. And so I understand that there are people of all races that do the right thing. It happens every day. We get not guilties every day by all white jurors when there's black defendants. And so, but we do have to make sure that you investigate who your lawyer is, do the best that you can in trying to pick one, and don't plead guilty if you're not. I mean, that's all you can do. Remember to spread the word. Look at my old TV shows on YouTube. Also, if you have a story that you want to tell to help educate people about the criminal justice system, please reach out to me. And remember, I want to tell your story. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. for tuning in again tonight.
Tonight we have something really good.
A hot topic in the